right. That's Rooks. That's Rooks. Y'all ready? You're ready for a little impromptu streaming here? Here we go. We'll go in just a second here. We're gearing up. Let's go. Cheers. This is jungle drum and bass. Drum and bass. Drum and bass. This is our friend Rooks G. This is drum and Bazed. jungle to get us ready here. Impromptu Friday night streaming. Alright, there we go. Jethro, do me a favor, drop the link in Instagram, would you? We're going live. We do it live here. Alright, that was Rooks G. Yeah, a little jungle drum and bass. So here we go. We're doing a little impromptu kind of Friday night, little Friday After Dark Predator, 1987, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, R.I.P. Carl Weathers, streaming here. And tomorrow, please make sure to join us for the 3K party stream. Tomorrow we're doing Point Break, my favorite movie of all time. Well, besides Apocalypse Now, Train Spotting, a bunch of other movies, but it's my classic favorite movie, and I thought that would be a good one to do for our 3K, 200K views, 2-year anniversary stream. So make sure to join us tomorrow at 4 o'clock Eastern time for that. We may have some special guests drop in. But tonight, we are covering the classic 80s movie Predator. And this is one of the great movies of all time. Everybody knows that. I mean, if you haven't seen this movie, what are you doing? No, this one is it's kind of for the fellas, for the boys. But, you know, all-star cast, John McTiernan. We just did Die Hard, right? We just did John McTiernan's Die Hard. And this one it's amazing that he did this movie and then Die Hard the next year. Dylan, you son of a bitch. What's the matter? CIA got you pushing too many pencils? So you decided to take the 6 of us and drop us in the meat grinder. What happened? Dylan used to be someone they had to trust. So, yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of classic lines from the movie. So it's got an all-star cast. Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously, who is the absolute king of the action movies, especially of the 80s. Carl Weathers, who plays an interesting role in this. A different kind of Carl Weathers. We've also got Jesse Ventura. Listen, I was on the set, and the wardrobe department told me that my biceps were bigger than Arnold's biceps. So I went to him and I said, Arnold, you haven't been eating enough Wagyu beef. But it was just a trick. Yeah. It's also got Billy. It's got Shane Black. And this one's really interesting. I'm going to tie in a couple of books into this one, which you may not have suspected that I'd be doing. So, a couple of books that are going to play a role into this, especially into my sort of thesis for this film. One is this book about the Matamoros cartel cult, and this one, this is by Jim Kilroy and Bob Stewart, and this is it's interesting because how would that tie in? Well, of course, it's going to tie into what they're doing there in the first place in South America, and also what the Predator does and his ritualistic actions, which mimic this guy Costanza, who was not George Costanza, but a demon man Costanza, who was the head of the Matamoros cult and was involved in this these series of ritualistic events. Another one is, of course, the Edmund Morris. This is a very normie book. I read this November 10th, 2001. You can tell because I got a big 9 flag on the inside of it. And this is the Edmund Morris book, Dutch. And, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger plays the character Dutch in this movie. And it's a heavily propagandistic film. Another one is the Oliver North autobiography, Under Fire. And that's because the movie deals with Contras. And look, this Actually, this edition of this book. It's addressed to my dad, so I'll cross out his name. But it's can you see that? Cross out his name, but it's it's signed. It's a signed first edition from Oliver North, and from back in the day. And of course, that's because the movie deals with Contra. So here's my thesis again. And actually, I wrote this. I've seen Predator hundreds of times. I don't know, thousands of times. I remember actually the first time that I realized it was a movie, and it's because I was a kid. I was 7 years old. It was 1987. I was packing, helping my parents pack up something, pack up books or something in the library, and we were using the newspaper to pack in the boxes, and I remember seeing an ad for Predator in the newspaper, in the packing paper, and because it had Arnold Schwarzenegger on it with the crosshairs, and I remember going, "Whoa, it's a super cool logo for the movie." I was 7, and then I saw it. Of course, we rented it on VHS at the movie gallery, and I saw the movie like thousands of times. And this is I think that that's important, not just because it's a hyperthymesia memory or whatever. I think it's important because the movie is sort of geared towards that exact audience. Of course, this is there's a lot of propaganda in the film, and it's an action movie, and it's made for adults. But that the movie is also geared towards a younger audience, probably kids in the 80s. And I'm sure the movie drove recruitment. I mean, it's a special forces, a spec ops, Mac v. SOG sort of Vietnam holdover movie, but in the 80s Contra era. So it was aimed at that particular audience. So here's my thesis for the movie, and I just wrote this down years ago. So, and I was just sitting there and I was just writing about it. So I wrote Predator, well developed characters, interwoven mission theme make the Predator to prey role reversal seamless. A cliched, jingoistic Reaganite propaganda film levels up to a survival technowar horror film about a physical demon with body mods and its own profane mission. It collects trophies mirroring the MO of the Matamoros cartel cult and even annihilates itself in a fitting deus ex machina. It's interesting that the hero's name is Dutch, Reagan's own nickname, thus closing the hero's journey with a patriotic denouement worthy of Bernays or perhaps more apt Reifenstahl at the zenith of their careers. And usually I don't write I don't I don't read I read I read books. I don't read my thesis statement when I'm doing the stream, but I just because I'd written this years and years ago, I thought it would be fitting to read that particular one for this one. So what does that mean? Well, let's get into the film and what happens. Everybody, I'm sure, again, has seen the movie 100,000 times. It's in my opinion, it's the best Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. I mean, it's hard to contend with Terminator 2 and Total Recall and all of the various Schwarzenegger, 80s action movies, especially 80s and early 90s action movies. But this one is really different, and I think the reason that it's so good, first of all, besides the cast, and Jean-Claude Van Damme was supposed to play the Predator. You guys know that? I'm sure you knew that. He was actually there, and actually he is in the film. He's there is one scene where they had shot it with Van Damme as the Predator, and it's the scene where he gets shot and he's running away, and you can actually tell that it's Van Damme because his physicality, as they call it. Now, the way that he runs through the jungle is different from Kevin Peter Hall, who they later chose to be Predator here. And that's because originally I think they wanted Predator to be a karate 80s sort of more athletic character, doing ninja tricks in the desert, and they found out that they couldn't do that on location, especially with the costume that they chose, which was heavy, and also because most of the cast is like 6'2" to 6'5", bodybuilders or athletes. Carl Weathers was a pro football player, and of course he was Apollo Creed. Even Shane Black, he looks, he's supposed to play the nerd in this movie, but he's special forces, and he's fairly jacked in the movie, I guess. I mean, it's a good crew, and so really, we've done a stream on the Most Dangerous Game. We've done a lot of themes on Most Dangerous Game, and a particular one just on the short story Most Dangerous Game and Hunger Games and all those, and various iterations of that. But this is a good example of that because it's a role reversal, predator to prey, right? It's literally called Predator. And these guys are supposed to be the predators in the jungle. And actually, that's one of the motifs of the movie because one of the points of contention between Dutch and Carl Weathers, because he says, we're a rescue team, we're not assassins. Now, of course, that's part of the propaganda of the movie, but that's just for the movie's sake. They're supposed to be rescuing a cabinet minister and some hostages and then make their, and then exfil from the jungle. But they end up being prey for another worldly predator. So the way that the movie begins is actually what sets the tone. So we see stars, right? The first thing we see is a starry, not even a starry night. We see space. We don't see Earth. We just see stars in the sky. And obviously, you can't help but think that that's because we're about to see stars. We're going to see movie stars, right? So we're looking. That's part of what the movies do. We're looking up at a screen that's above us, right? This is the Crowley and Kenneth Anger Hollywood Babylon thing, where the movies were sort of founded as a way for people to, in a figurative sense, for people to live forever, right? Forever young, because as long as the movie exists, Schwarzenegger will be, what was he, 39, or his character's supposed to be 39 in the film. He'll be that age forever watching the movie, regardless of his age in real life. And so we're looking at, especially when we have close-ups and we have their face 20 feet high on a screen, we're looking up like we're looking at the stars. So we see a starry, outer space scene. And then we see the logo Predator, and it's very well done. I mean, even the fonts for the movie posters and the marketing, and even the font at the beginning, and it's actually brilliant that it's just called Predator. Think about that. Movie titles and book titles are supremely important because not only do they determine how the book is going to sell, but in a literary sense, the book has to encapsulate the meaning and the theme of the book. And if it's in one word, it's very difficult to do. I think one word titles are especially important. I mean, that's one reason why I like Shakespearean tragedies, right? 3 of the 4 Shakespearean tragedies are one word titles: Othello, Hamlet, Macbeth. Now those are protagonists, but in this, again, we get a character, and that's what he is. Shouts out to Hattori Hanzo, who sends $5 and says, enjoying the journey through the BLA archive, a few dinars for the next book run. Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And if you guys want to support, you can drop super chats there. You can you can share. You can grab a membership. If you're not a member, do that because we like to have fun. We do it live. We like to have fun. Yo, get to the chopper! Shouts out to the real John Connor out there. How you doing, buddy? So good to see you in here, and so good to see everybody on this Friday night. We're pushing through February. We're not even mid-February yet, but this is the year of love, and I think it's important to spend a Friday night talking about. You remember the old days, TBS? If you're as old as I am, 43. You remember the old days of movies for guys who like movies on TBS? This was the movie. When I think of that, I think of Predator. I remember sitting in my garage in my house watching this movie, waiting for the homeboys to give me a call so I could go out. But yeah, this is a great movie. So we see the font, and we see Predator, and then we see a spaceship. And what's really interesting about this is that on this most recent rewatch, I couldn't help but think that the spacecraft looks a lot like what do they call it? They're calling it the jellyfish alien. Have you seen this? Which is a blob on the screen, or it's a advanced, it's advanced weaponry, DARPA, Air Force, Pentagon. It's not an alien, but it looks a lot like this. It's kind of a gray, asymmetrical, not a blob. It's hard and metallic. It's not liquidy. There is some liquid, sploishy, sploogey green splunk matter in this movie, but it's cool what they do with it. And yeah, Caravaggio UAPs, and so it gets close to Earth's atmosphere, and then it veers off while a kind of lit, um, a what is it? It's a meteorite. It's a meteor when it's in space. It's a meteoroid. A meteor. It's a meteorite when you find it. It's a meteoroid when it's flying through the air. I don't know. There's three different classifications for meteorite apparently. But anyway, and it goes into the atmosphere, and we see the Earth, and then we cut to some sort of tropical, landscape. It's morning. It's also makes what's really interesting about this, and we covered this in the high concept analysis, the Don Simpson book, High Concept, is that it was important for Don Simpson and for Simpson and Bruckheimer to make sure that all of their movies began with the sunrise. And Don Simpson specifically talks about that because he says that this, especially when you get military movies or movies with military involvement or anything patriotic, we're supposed to see a new day. And a lot of times the movies, of course, will end with the setting sun because the archetypal American image of the cowboy riding into the setting sun is something that lifts up the audience. So we see, but this is interesting because we start off with space, blackness and stars, and then we go into the narrative and we see dawn. And this is different because we're obviously in Central or South America. And this is important for the 80s because 1987 is the exact time when the Contra events were coming to light. And so this was in the public's mind. I mean, I was a kid and I knew about this at the time. So I can't, I'm sure adults were aware that this was happening. It was one of the big scandals, one of the big events happening. Of course, now we, know about what was really happening and the reasons for such CIA involvement with arms, drugs, and all this stuff. But what's really interesting is that we see the contrast between the shouts out to technowar graphics out there, friend Mixkey. He says, dude, you're covering my all-time favorite movie. Exactly. Just got out of Father Deacon's class. Hope y'all are doing good. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing good work, I guess, and is well out there, right? I like it when Mersh and Royce are talking, and I don't know why I find this so funny, but but Royce always corrects Mersh when he uses good and well, but he uses it properly and accurately. Royce always corrects him. He says, "Yeah, it was a good movie," and he says, "It was a well movie." Anyway, I don't know why I think that's so funny. They're very funny. So anyway, so we get the contrast between the third world, right, and we get a bunch of very, people that don't have much. Okay, right there on the river, and that. Now that I think about it, that's obviously relevant for now because this is the exact thing happening now in that sphere, all of the people and their mass movements. But here we go with going down there. And then we see the helicopters coming in. Obviously, this is a nod to, you can't help but have helicopters in a war movie, post-Apocalypse Now, without a nod to Apocalypse Now. In fact, I think the filmmakers specifically made it this way, where we see the helicopters coming in the dawn light, except for instead of a raid happening here, the cavalry coming in, death from above. We do have death from above, but it's in the form of a special forces unit, which is highly reminiscent of Mac v. Sog, Douglas Valentine Phoenix program, and that will play a really big role in this movie. It really does. I'm not just imagining it because I'm going to get into what the Predator does with his victims, but it is very reminiscent of that. And it's kind of irrelevant whether it was intended or not. That is the that is the symbolism, and that's what we can take from it now. So, so what happens is they're listening to Little Richard, and it's funny because the Little Richard song, "Long Tall Sally," that they're playing, it actually they play it for longer than the song actually is, and that's because they extend it because they're coming in, and then we see the helicopters land, and immediately we see this group of like they're obviously supposed to be. This is total alpha badass 80s military rock and roll dudes. I mean, Jesse Ventura is wearing an MTV shirt on his special forces mission. It's pretty wild, right? It's very it's a fun movie. So we see these dudes and immediately if you're one of the broskies, you watch this and you go, "Whoa. Sweet. This is cool." Right? It's a fun movie to watch. Um, and so we see a group of there's variety in their group. So we see Jesse Ventura, who's obviously huge, but they're all in their civvies. And then he jumps out. We see Billy. Billy is I guess an Apache or a Navajo, but he's a tracker. And then we see Shane Black. We see Hawkins. And then of course when they get out of the helicopter, who's left sitting there chilling? And that's the big reveal. And then we see the star of the movie, and that's Arnold. And he really is cool in this movie. He's top form, and he's chilling. He's just he's chilling. He's chilling. He's chilling and killing. He's chilling in this helicopter that's got to refuel or take off, but he's just chilling. He's chilling. He's taking his time. He's in his red alligator shirt. Is it a polo shirt or an alligator shirt? I don't know what it is, but he's classy. He's classy. But he's got his shades on, his turbos, his Cobras, and he lights his cigar. Even the way he gets out of the chopper is pretty cool. Like he grabs his bag, he throws it out, he jumps out of the chopper, gets his bag. He doesn't like get out with his bag like I guess that's so it doesn't look like he's carrying like a purse. I mean, everything he does is super alpha in this. He's very very confident. I mean, he really is the leader of this group, and it's so cool. They're such a cohesive unit. I think that one of the great things about the movie is that regardless of the planning for the movie and what they intended, Arnold was top draw. He was king of the 80s, king of Hollywood at the time. And so obviously he had a say in how his image was going to be portrayed and how the movie would be produced. But I think that what they probably intended was for this to be a one-on-one movie, a kind of a Rocky-esque, or a Terminator one-on-one, but it ends up being a team. And, it's kind of like the Magnificent Seven, but we have a most dangerous game taking out one guy at a time, but you have confidence in every member of the team. And I say this because, again, like, one of the things that I did, I mean, like, did you, all right, fellas, like, when you watched this movie when you were younger, like, if you were, 8 years old and you saw this movie, were you like, you played war. Surely you played war. And did you go out into the woods and play like this? And like, you were like, all right, you're Hawkins, right? You're Billy, right? I'm Dutch, right? And you do all the moves that you learned from the movie. It's wild how movies do that to you, especially when you're young. There's a scene where when they finally get to the camp and they're looking down, Arnie hands his gear off to somebody who takes it, behind him. He knows what to do. And he grabs the binoculars. He grabs his binoculars. He gets on his belly and he slides down the hill in the leaves. And then he comes up over the log and he's looking. There's that meme of him looking with the binoculars. But think about that little movement in the movie and how well done it is. And it's like Dark says best final girl ever. Yeah, we did a stream on the final girl, and there is a final girl in this kind of. I mean, she does survive, right? And she's the final survivor. She's the only survivor of the group of hostages. But anyway, so what happens is they go into the huts, right? First they get in their jeeps. So it's almost like we get World War II at the beginning because they get in their sort of World War II era looking. I know they're not actually World War II era jeeps, but they get in them. They're driving through the surf, and then they go up to the base, and they got this old grizzled looking colonel. It's always a grizzled looking colonel with his 2 stars on his head. Is he the general or the colonel? Well, I don't know what he is. He's got 2 stars. I guess he's a 2-star general, but I think he's listed as colonel. But it doesn't matter because Dutch is a major. He's obviously a major. He's obviously supposed to be Lee Marvin, a kind of Lee Marvin character in the Dirty Dozen. But he's the major, right? And Bill Duke, interestingly, this is the only Bill Duke, I think, is the only action black man in the 80s without a mustache. Think about that, right? Every other, I mean, even Carl Weathers has the mustache, and Bill Duke is clean shaven. And actually, that's going to play a role in one of the key scenes in the movie where he's shaving, right? He's dry shaving in the jungle. Bill Duke is fantastic in this movie. Actually, usually Carl Weathers is the one who gives heart to the movies. Like, think about, with Rocky, there is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow, Rock. There is no tomorrow. But in this one, Apollo Creed is like all heart and soul. By the way, I've never been a fan of Rocky 1. I'm just going to say that. I do understand the movie, and I appreciate it. I especially appreciate the movie because it's essentially a sort of para-Christian allegory. I mean, it begins with the cross, right? And it's the story of the underdog, and he rises, and it's wholesome. And also notice in the end of Rocky, what's the reason Rocky is an important movie is because he doesn't win. He actually wins by losing in the movie, but he becomes that creates a legacy in the movie. And that's something interesting about it. But I've never been a fan of that movie. I like Rocky 4, but speaking of Rocky 4, how relevant is that now with the big interview that happened last night? By the way, I realized this. You notice one thing about movies about the Ruskies and the big nukes going off. Have you noticed that in most of the movies where they are 80s Cold War movies with the Ruskies and the Americans, going at each other, the Ruskies end up actually not launching. They actually end up being the good guys, even though that's not what's intent. I'm not saying I'm not saying either side is good. I know the two sides. I know the dialectic, man. Okay, but what I'm saying is, what's interesting is in the movies push towards, they're the bad guys, and we gotta counter strike. Maybe Red Dawn is the exception. Although in Red Dawn, remember, it's not the Russians who invade; it's the Cubans. That's one of those. I think that's one of those Mandela effect things that people think about. But it's actually the Cuban guys who invade, and of course they have Russian advisors, and the Russians will play a role. This is a Cold War movie. There are Russian advisors in the camp, but what's interesting is that they always end up being the ones who aren't going to shoot. Like, I guess Dr. Strangelove is a satire, so that ends up being but we're the first strike in Dr. Strangelove, right? Rocky 4, remember, if you can change, that whole thing. Okay, so anyway, so they get to the hut, and they go in, they got the colonel, and then he goes in, he starts talking to the colonel, and he's got this mission, and he looks at the maps, and the first thing he sees, I think it's a map of Brazil, but he sees that he's told that basically the outline of the mission is that there is a cabinet minister who has wandered too close to the border, right? Our Dutch says, it seems like he's on the wrong side of the border. It's a little strange, of course. And what are they doing there? And they've got to go and get these guys. And then he says, what are we doing here? Why didn't you just get the regular army to come in and do it? Right? Why not? And then you hear because some damn fool accused you of being the best. Dylan, you son of the bitch. The ultimate meme. I wonder how many Zoomers, etc., don't know that this is Predator, that comes from Predator. I mean, and it's so cool. It really is so it's so over the top. Actually, speaking of over the top, that's like another Stallone movie. Remember Over the Top, which was the movie about arm wrestling? And that's the exact the form that he has in Over the Top. I bet you they got I bet you know what? I bet you the movie Over the Top, the idea came from that scene in this movie. Do you think that? What year? Somebody in the chat, tell me what year was Sylvester Stallone Over the Top? What year did that come out? It had to have come out after this. Was it like 1989, maybe 88 or 89? I don't think it was 90s. But anyway, yeah, push the CIA got you pushing too many pencils. What's the matter, Dylan? And we see these oiled up, these two alpha chads going at it, and then we find out who is the alpha, and it's Schwarzenegger because look at his face. So notice the camera work here. We go from seeing the two of them, we get Schwarzenegger's slow turnaround. He sees Dylan in the corner. Dylan's got a tie on. He looks sweaty. He looks out of place. Dutch looks totally at ease in this scene, even though they're in a tropical climate, and the heat is going to play a role in this. Was it 87? Wow, it was the same year. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay. Wow, synchro. Thank you, Thomas Henderson. Thank you, Technowar Graphics. That's crazy. But obviously that, I guess, maybe it didn't come from that. But it would be interesting if they, because that's how Don Simpson came up with ideas for movies. Remember that when they did Top Gun? They were sitting around reading magazines. He was reading like Sports Illustrated, and he saw an ad with F-16s, and he was like, I think we should make a movie about these. Let's call up a screenwriter. He had the guy write like 100 drafts of the script. Make him go faster. Faster. So anyway, notice the camera work. We see them. Then we focus in. There's a side shot. It's focused on just their biceps and their grip. And then we see their two faces, and we see Carl Weathers is a great actor because it's not a tight close-up, but in the close-up of that scene, you can see the differences between these two guys. They represent opposite sides, and that's part of great filmmaking. Of course, part of great literature is show, don't tell. So we're being shown here before we're told anything. We already know the back. We don't need complete exposition in terms of the mission or who these guys are or where they came from. That gets sort of released in bits throughout the movie, but it's cohesive. Like when they reference Libya, they reference Afghanistan, they reference all these different places they've been. And that's important for character development, but also for the mission at hand. It's not extraneous. So the movie is tight. But they show us Carl Weathers in the dark, and when they show his face, he looks uncomfortable. He's sweating profusely. He looks uncomfortable already. And we can see that he's hiding something and that he is at one with these guys. He used to be with them, but there's a difference here now. And it's also interesting that Bill Duke is the one who calls him out on this, right? I bleed you real quiet like, right? So anyway, then we learn the mission that, of course, that they've got the cabinet minister. They got to get the best, and that's Dutch's team. Okay, now this is where we go into propaganda territory and where we also go into Phoenix Program territory. I'm not saying this is a Phoenix Program movie, but it has elements of that in it heavily. And the reason I say that is because the team, although it's never stated what they are, although we do know that the guy that they are, did you realize that the guy that they are following, because usually they're following somebody who failed. The same thing in Apocalypse Now. Remember Colby was sent, but he failed, or something happened to him. He never came back, so then they got to send Willard on a special forces mission, right, up the river. This one, they're following Hopper, and Hopper is the name of the sheriff in Stranger Things. I think that the showrunners of Stranger Things actually chose that as the name because of Predator, which is interesting. But his name's Jim Hopper, and he was sent in there to do this thing, and now they've been taken hostage, and they have to rescue them. And so Dutch makes sure that they know that he is a rescue team, not a team of assassins. However, that is part of the prop element of the movie, that we're supposed to see these guys as heroes on our side, and we do. We watch the movie and we see them as heroes, and we follow them, and they're the protagonists. And then they're eventually pitted with an obvious villain, one of the great villains in movies, because he's literally inhuman. He's not human. That's part of how Billy senses him in the movie. But in reality, right, there are teams that do rescues, but these are assassins. I mean, that is what they are. So it's never stated that they're Green Berets, They would be Green Berets. All of the actions that they do in the movie are Green Beret-esque. And just it's the same thing with Apocalypse Now. You get a rogue Green Beret, special forces, um, SOG guy who's out there, and he's out there operating without any sense of decency, right? No, but they are like the stuff they do with the trees and the making the weapons, and it's this is actually mirrored in the movie The Hunted, which have we talked about that? I think we've talked about the movie The Hunted, which is a great underrated movie. Of course, that's got Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro, right? If you cross this line, he says, you remember that? That's a great movie. That one is about the Balkans, right? And a Green Beret, MK Ultra, shattered mind. He's not specifically MK Ultra in the movie, but he has all of the sort of. There's a lot of indication that he's an MK Delta in the movie, right? Anyway, so it's the same thing with these guys. They're going in. They're a team of assassins, and interesting that even though they say they're a team of they're rescuing. They have to be heavily armored, but they have all the accoutrement, right, of a team of assassins. I mean, they go in there and they are kitted up, right? They're kitted up, and I know that SEALs do rescue missions and all that stuff, but these guys are. But are assassins and underwater demolition, and I know the difference between the propaganda and the reality. But what I'm saying is that they are. Caravaggio says, just going back to what BLS said earlier about the title, how telling is it that they named the latest remake Prey? Well, yeah, that's that. Have you guys seen that movie? I don't care for any of the other sequels, but actually, I thought that one was pretty well done, and it's clever, because it's like. Well, we have sort of money-making sequels of Predator 2, and then they go into Predators and Aliens and all this, sort of comic book stuff. But I thought that it was interesting that they went back to Predator and then and they end with Prey. I thought that was it was not as bad as I expected it to be. I thought it was fairly well done. But yes, I see what you mean. Yes. So they go in and they're supposed to go in and they're going to rescue a cabinet minister. Now we know watching the movie that the cabinet minister is CIA. We know that, right? Why else? Why else is Dylan there, who we already know is pushing pencils for the CIA? It's just that Doug Valentine in Phoenix Program specifically mentions multiple. Phoenix Program is right here. Right here. Phoenix Program, Doug Valentine. If you haven't read the book, you got to read it. He specifically mentions how Green Berets are the ones used for, anything that deals with embedding oneself, jungle warfare, especially using the resources of the land, or training allied or native armies or military forces or paramilitary forces, which is exactly what's going on in this. So these guys set out, and what they learn is that Dylan, of course, is going to go with them as a kind of armed advisor. And Dutch says, my team, we only work alone. Of course. And he says, sorry, Dutch. We all got our orders, right? So they got to take Dylan along with them, which is suspicious, of course, right? And so they set off into the jungle, and their mission is to make their way to this armed encampment in the middle of the jungle where they're going to find their hostages, rescue them, and then exfil to the helo site, and then get back all in a day. And it never goes as planned. It never goes like that. But one of the things about this is that's especially good when you watch the movie. This is really the reason why the movie works. That Arnie is very good in this movie in terms of his acting. And people say he's not a great actor. Well, I mean, he's a movie star. There's a difference. There really is a difference, because these guys start to embody these big elements. And in this, though, there are subtleties with his character, if you go back and watch it, that are really amazing, because every time something goes wrong with the team, Arnie displays the opposite reaction, which is one of being calm and cool and almost at ease and whimsical in how bad the times are, because he's told later on by Dylan that he says, I woke up. Why don't you? Right? Get with the program. Your men are expendable. And of course, there's later expendable movies. But what we know as adults watching the movie that of course these guys are the razor's edge and they are sent in an expendable sense for the mission because they're following the other guys for that very reason. But Dylan says, my men are not expendable. These are, these guys, and we see that in the characters. Each one is individual and unique, but they make up a team, right? When they're in the, it's interesting how well they play the sort of alphas in the helicopter. We get the jokes, right? We get the bawdy jokes and the sense of humor. Yes, Circle G, you make a good point. Yes, USA Special Forces, every country in the world, death squads. You're exactly right. And Doug Valentine is especially. He points that out a number of times. Who else does that? Stockwell, in talking about Nicaragua. Is it Stockwell who talks about Nicaragua and the death squads of Guatemala and Nicaragua? And of course, this movie has overtones of those very things. They are sent in as a death squad, and that's exactly what they do, right? They wipe out the entire camp. But the difference is that, of course, watching the movie, we get a reason. Hold on. God, I can't breathe. It's because I took those dusty books off. We get a reason for that in the film. And so when they're in the helicopter coming in, we get a great introduction and character development because even the scene where they're flying in and Jesse Ventura's, he's doing the chewing tobacco. He's got a big chaw and he's got his very funny line, right? Which is dudes being dudes. This is the ultimate dudes being dudes situation. And he makes sure to violate the space of Carl Weathers, who he has obvious disrespect for within the team, but he still accepts him as a member of the team because of their orders. He spits right on his shoes, right? He's very insulting. But that it plays a role in this. Yes, the Sandinistas. We've covered a number of things that also cover this as prerequisites. I mean, we did one of the streams. If you guys haven't seen it, please, if you're watching this, go back and watch my stream on Kara Mori, which is the Thomas Harris book. Thomas Harris wrote the Silence of the Lambs, and this is sort of a sequel to that. We've got a paperclip-esque / Blood Meridian, Judge Holden, bald, albino, Iger sanction, NAZI holdover character, kind of like as if Klaus Barbie is living in Miami and is albino in the book, and he's like living on top of an alligator pit. And Karamori is a survivor of the not the Sandinistas, the FARC rebels in Colombia. So she's a survivor of that. And then, so go back and watch that stream because that will sort of play a role in this. Yes, thank you, enfant terrible, the FARCs. And so what happens is they chop her in and they make their way through the jungle. And I think the movie, you know that they made the movie with advisors and on location, and they wanted it to be as accurate as possible with Hollywood thrown in. So, in other words, like, for instance, the distance between the men in patrol, it would be a lot wider and would be a lot quieter. But when you're watching the Hollywood version of these events, sort of take place, you have your suspension of disbelief, as Coleridge said, and you believe that these guys, and you know that this drove recruitment. You just know it did. It had to have. I mean, that dudes saw this movie and were like, yeah, I want to do that. I mean, they look cool. So they're making their way through the jungle, and they come upon the camp, and Arnie does his crawling on his belly, which is interesting because there's a number of snake images in this, but he's crawling on his belly. And they mention lizards. You remember when Carl Weathers says, he's not what are you telling me, a damn lizard? Right, because when the Karamori FARC rebel survivor, the final girl that they rescue, is speaking Spanish the whole time, and then admits finally to Dutch when he grabs her, and she speaks English, and she says that he camouflaged that whatever killed the big man, as she calls him, took on the camouflage like a chameleon, and so of course Dylan, who is CIA, doesn't want to believe this and says, "What? You telling me a damn lizard man?" But remember that later on in the movie, we do see when Dutch is camouflaged against the tree, also chameleon style. He's covered in mud, and he takes on the camouflage of the tree because in the thermal vision, he can't be seen by the predator. And remember, Predator is also crawling on his belly downwards, right? And he has these mandibles, which are like alien demon spawn serpent like, right? So it's interesting. He crawls down into sort of seeing this camp, and then when he looks through the binoculars, he sees, what's that guy's name? I know it's the actor Sven. It's the guy who's in The Running Man. We did a Running Man analysis in the Most Dangerous Game stream, but I think that's who it is. And he has one of the hostages there, and he smokes him. And so Dutch, gathers the group together. I know this wouldn't happen. But he gathers the group together and he says, okay, well, now we're going to fan out. He gives them a game plan. They're all grouped together right above the camp. And their infiltration of the camp is awesome. It really is. So they're crawling along. Dutch is making his way into the main hut. Shane Black and Carl Weathers are on lookout. Of course, they're both looking in the same direction. And then we see Jesse Ventura is crawling. And, of course, there's that great scene of, and he stops right at the wire, the tripwire. That's a great scene. That is what really sells the movie. There's a lot of elements, I know that I'm talking about, that sell the film. You know, the acting, the cohesive. Yes, thank you, Thomas Henderson. The cohesive way, the interactions between the fellas here, who it's not that they get along. It's that they work together. They're a team, and we believe this happens. You watch the movie and you put yourself in the shoes of any of these guys, and you feel comfortable that you're going to get the job done when you're there, right? And then that gets subverted. But it's like the little elements of the close-ups with the tripwire. It's such a small thing, but it's a huge thing, right? There's claymores. And so he sees the tripwire, and then of course, who comes up to help him, which is Bill Duke, and they've had a special sort of friendship within the group that we see, and it's not because they've said anything special or anything. It's just somehow those two are kind of together, and so Bill Duke gets a twig, and then they remove the tripwire, and then Bill Duke gets his big Rambo knife, and he does the right, and they all take out the outer perimeter at the same time, which is very well done. And then they make their way into the camp. And then there's of course, Arnie has to have the great scene of, we see the truck down there, which is, the truck is running and it's up on logs, and that's, their generator. And then he puts the claymore in the truck, lifts it up. Arnie always is lifting up trucks. Have you noticed that? He did that in Commando. Remember, he pushed over the yellow Volkswagen. Oh, wow. I just realized that the yellow Volkswagen with the kind of weird Charlie Manson character in that film. You know, the guy who come out, what does he say? Warriors come out to play. He's that little guy. And he's one of the henchmen in Commando. You remember that? And he's driving they commandeer a yellow, it's Radon Chong or whatever that girl's name is. They get her in her yellow Beetle. When we hear yellow Beetle, obviously you have to think Bundy. Bundy had the yellow Beetle. David Berkowitz talked about the yellow Beetle. These guys are all existing in the same program to kill circle, right, as Manson. And that guy looks like Manson, right? Jethro says he's in Twin Peaks too. He's Jerry in Twin Peaks, says Phone Punk. Yeah, that guy's interesting, right? But yeah, he lifts the car. He's always lifting these things, and that's obviously to highlight, his physique and all this stuff. But it's great when they go in and we find out that, there's just the one lady that's still there. Everybody else is dead. We saw them execute the one guy right there when they're going in. So right away, the mission is sort of blown. There's no hostages left. So what are they doing? And they immediately destroy the entire thing. Shane Black is the guy going through the data and any kind of intel that they have. There, he's going to grab the intel. They find out, and they have a sit rep, and they find out that, this guy was no cabinet minister. He was obviously CIA, and that there are Russian advisors there. And then so Dylan has to admit on the spot to Dutch that he lied to him. And that's when we get the what? You decided to take the six of us and drop us in the meat grinder. Right. So this is a really cool scene because we now know that they were sent in as a death squad. They were sent in as assassins. This was no rescue mission because he'd already sent these guys in. And because if this, he says if this stuff had crossed the border, right, we had a limited amount of time. So I guess he's talking about weapons. This is Contra. This is Contra material here. I guess Sandinistas and Contras. And there has to be, there's no mention specifically in the movie of drugs, but this is like this is Contra, Oliver North, South American FARC, heroin and cocaine drug territory, drugs for weapons and missiles, right? In a globalist symbiotic system, which we're still feeling the repercussions of now. It's not a laughing matter. I'm just saying it's wild that the movie's 1987 and that was the height of that stuff. And it's still obviously still there, and we're still in the effects of it. Yes, Los Pepes. What do they call them? Was it Hijas del Muerte? Right. The guy. I've got the normie book. Killing Pablo. Is it Killing Pablo? Where's that book? I've got it up there somewhere. It's up there. It's up there somewhere. The book about Pablo and the Los Pepes and the CIA and how they. And then also another good book on this, by the way, is American Desperado by John Is it? American Desperado, which is about CIA mob ties and Pablo. Yeah, Mark Bowden's the book. Thank you. That one's a great book because that one goes into it in a more in-depth sort of revelatory manner. But stream link. Hold on, let me send my friend the stream. Hold on a sec. Let me get one of my homeboys to. So, so now we got to find out what happened to the guys who were there before, right? 48 watching, you guys. Appreciate you being with me here on a Friday night watching this great movie. Please make sure that you smash that like. Everybody smash that like. And please share the stream. And remember to be here tomorrow at 4 o'clock Beast Coast time because we're going to be doing Point Break. And we're going to have some special guests hopefully drop in. I'll definitely have Maddie here, our friend Maddie, Real Cooter Brown, Digital Minefield. He'll be with me here to talk about Point Break. But I want you guys here to celebrate with me because we're all in this one together. Yeah, I know, Elon. I was thinking the same thing. Surprised Bill O'Reilly didn't write that book. I was just thinking that because he's got the market cornered on those books. We do it live. We do it live. Fuck it. We do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks. It never gets old for me. I'm sorry. This is the greatest. It's also so awesome that it's inside edition. You remember, not like those hard copy guys. Remember Ace Ventura? Hard copy inside edition. I saw America's Most Wanted is coming back. Did you guys see that? America's Most Wanted is coming back, and I just remembered this. I forgot to mention in the True Detective stream that I just did with Maddie that the guy's name was Otis, and he like kind of resembled Otis Toole. And the reason I thought of that is because Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas, that's our boy Henry Lee Lucas. Remember, were the guys that were the reason for America's Most Wanted starting. That was John Walsh and those events. But all right, I digress. Let's get back to this. So So what happens? Now we've got to find out what happened to the guys that were sent there before, and we learned that that was Jim Hopper and his team of Green Berets. They mentioned Green Berets, and we've got to find their bodies. So now we're going out into the woods to search for the other team, and that's where we really encounter the fact that these guys aren't the predators. There is a singular predator that we've kind of forgotten about since the beginning of the movie. And that what happens is, if you notice, when Shane Black tells the pretty funny joke to Billy after, which is this is comic relief, right? This is almost Shakespearean comic relief. We get bawdy humor following a series of pretty nasty events and war and death, like in Shakespeare, and we get Shane Black attempting to tell this kind of bawdy joke, and Billy takes a second to get it, and then he starts laughing. And did you notice that this is where Billy notices that they're being watched, and it's not just his it's not just his Apache sensibility to nature, which is obviously why he's there, right? He's the tracker in the group. But it's that he hears for a second his laugh echoing in a different style, and that's the predator trying to mimic his laugh. And this is interesting because one of the things, I can't believe this touch in the movie. This is one of the most brilliant things in the movie. The predator is from outer space. He's a kind of anti-deus ex machina. He dies in that sense in the movie. That's what ends the movie. But he is in the movie. He's a literal alien with body mods. We can also see this as a kind of allegory, a kind of metaphor or a weird humanistic allegory, militaristic allegory for lone Winter Soldier body mod people. Right, but he is using cloaking devices, and notice that his cloaking device, his camouflage, mirrors what's outside of him, so it doesn't absorb light. It doesn't hide him. It just reflects it back, so it mimics vision, and that throughout the movie, part of the predator's MO, which is all shown and not spoken in the movie, is that he is mimicking the human beings. He's mocking their language and mimicking them, which is satanic, right? He's like a fallen angel in the movie. He falls from outer space, right? He falls from the sky in flames, and he's mocking them, and he's gang stalking them through the woods. It's not exactly gangster. Let's just say he's stalking them. He's stalking them through the woods, and his final scene in the movie is him laughing. He's a trickster. He's a trickster demon who laughs in death. Did you notice that? I think that's one of the most amazing things about. Not to mention the satanic serpent crawling thing that he does. And his obvious ritualistic body things of this collecting skulls, and it's also set in the jungle. It's also set in nature. It's like a kind of allegorical weird. It's like a weird neo Eden, right? Nature is as it is, and the human beings are. It's like they've been. Okay, I don't want to say it's like they've been cast out here, but this demon's been cast out. Right, he's thrown out of this spaceship, and nature is violated because of the blood on the leaves coming from above in a tree. He's literally in a tree. I'm just realizing this part. He's in a tree. Like he hangs up all the bodies in trees. So there's nature, there's a singular tree, there's a serpent. That's pretty interesting. That's the archetypal implications of that. Are you guys? I mean, are you following me? Do you think that that's? I don't know if that's too far, but I think that that's part of the. I think that's part of what makes the movie work, right? So So what they find is Billy finds a helicopter facing downwards, right, in the sky, and they make their way up, and they find that the guys are hanging upside down, and they've been skinned alive. Remember, Dylan says they weren't killed; they were skinned alive. And this is real. I mean, this is where we get into a horror movie. This is the horror. The horror. This is like real horror movie territory. Went from an action movie to a horror movie. It's really, especially as a 7-year-old. When I was 7 and I saw this, it's pretty disturbing because the human beings are now the animals. Yeah, Caravaggio says never made that connection. Also, real hunters use animal call mimicry. Yes, they did. That's a very good point. So there's a literal and a figurative aspect to this where both work. And one of the things I came across this week when I was teaching, I was talking to somebody about John Donne's The Flea, the poem The Flea, and younger people have a problem with understanding metaphor, and I think adults do this too. That when you're reading literature or even when you're watching films, people who don't have qualities of discernment yet because they're young they lack the ability to understand that the complexity of literature and how it works. So in great literature or in great films, we can't have metaphors that are extraneous to the wordplay and to the central cohesive nature of whatever the subject or whatever the poem is or whatever the work of literature or whatever the movie is. In other words, if you're going to have a metaphor, the metaphor you have to have a literal and a figurative meaning, and both have to work. This is why Shakespeare works so well. This is why John Donne works so well. So, for instance, like in The Flea, in the poem The Flea, can you believe I'm talking about John Donne in a Predator stream? No one else did that. I bet you can't find a single instance of a Predator analysis where John Donne is mentioned. But actually, in Meditation 17 actually plays into this, right? No man is an island because when one guy gets lost, they lose a piece of themselves. Anyway, so what happens here is that in The Flea is that in this flea our two loves mingled be. The speaker in the poem is trying to seduce a woman and bed her, and it's quite clever and witty, and he's saying that basically like, oh no, you can do this because look, our fluids have already mingled, right? We're already basically together in this. It's a young man's poem, we're already mingled in this flea, and by the way, you're not so great because the flea bit you, and then it bit me, so we're both dirty anyway. Right. But then he starts to make religious connotations to it, saying that they are united, and they're not united yet as a couple. They're united in the flea. And then it becomes that there's 3 of them. Right. There's 2 of them mingled through the flea. So it's clever. But anyway, so what I'm saying here is that how did I get on that little train? What I'm saying here is that okay, let's get I don't know how I got on that. How did I get on that? Van Morrison sings Rave on John Donne, Rave on Mr. Yates. Yeah, he also says, Up to Sandy Row. Remember that song, Crispy? That's your favorite song, Madam George. That's my favorite Van Morrison song, Madam George. But anyway, so they find that these guys are skinned alive. Okay, now this is where we're going to get into, the stream, and I know it's not just me. I keep glitching on video. If I'm glitching on video, I know it's not just me because all of our friends it's also doing it. I guess it's just something going on with this cyber polygon. But anyway, so this is total Phoenix program territory. And why I say that is because, first of all, because I was talking about literal and figurative. So literally, the guys are hung upside down and they've been skinned alive, as he says. But now we figure out with the characters in the movie as we go along with them on their quest that they are being hung up like prey. So it's like, you're dressing the animal, and that's literally what the Predator's doing. But they're human beings. This is why it's a shock. But it's Figuratively, we read into Phoenix territory here because we see this as a kind of neo-Vietnam. And one of the things that Valentine talks about in Phoenix Program, the book with Lansdale, is that one of the first things the guys did in terms of their uh, counterterrorism and their sort of their attempts um, to counteract what the Viet Cong were doing and the kind of heart. This is the real hearts and minds, right? Is that they learned that in the Vietnamese culture, there's a vampire in their sort of pantheon, or it's a cultural thing. And one of the things they think is that if this vampire gets you, then you're forced to wander. You can't go to the afterlife. You're forced to wander on Earth, cursed. And so what they did was they would have Green Berets or SEALs, the MACV SOG, sitting by trails, and when there would be a patrol go through, they would grab the last guy. And when they grabbed him, they would puncture like a vampire here, and then hang him upside down and put a note on him with the phoenix bird and with the note basically saying that the vampire had gotten him and he was bled dry. And this started to destroy the morale of the local populace. And then that turned into snatch and grabs and psychotronic and techno warfare, where they would bust into huts and say trick or treat, or whatever, and grab guys, take them to these facilities, put them in a computer database, as Colby says, and then eventually just systematically go after them. That's when, remember in that Stockwell interview, they asked him, well, how many people were captured? And he's like, I don't know, 3 million or something. And then they say, well, how many survived the facility? He says 0. So that was the real hearts and minds. The hearts and minds isn't like dropping leaflets saying, oh, we've got McDonald's. It's destroying their hearts and minds. At least that's my interpretation. If you have a different one, you can leave it in the comments afterwards. But that's what is happening to these guys, because notice that when they see this, it obviously destroys their morale as a unit. They continue to do the job, but they see that they're being preyed upon, and they don't know why, because they think it has something to do with the team. And Dylan continues to say to the team that, no, this is 2 or 3 guys at the most, right? Well, 2 or 3 guys. This takes a unit of 6 guys, and these guys are like the hardest guys ever. So who are the 2 or 3 guys? Well, they were brought down with Stinger missiles, right, or with SAMs or whatever, and therefore they had to have been equipped, and I guess they were equipped by CIA, so he has a point. CIA or the Russian intelligence or whatever it is that's moving these guys, moving these guns and shooting down the guys. But the point is that Billy doesn't see this. And there's the great scene where Billy is standing in the wilderness. Now Billy is apart from the group. He's the tracker, and he goes out into the wilderness. And he also, remember, he said, the weird thing is there's no tracks. There's no tracks around here. And he's the tracker. You know this guy. You know Billy. Have you heard the story about how they refused to insure the movie unless they had bodyguards around the actor at all times because he would fight everyone? This guy was a real hard man. So Billy goes out into the jungle and he's looking out into the wilderness, and this is where we see, this isn't the first time, but this is where we see the perspective change. And now we're looking at them in thermal vision from the viewpoint of the predator, who is in the trees and looking down. And we see these globs of, we see the people in thermal vision. But Arnie goes out there, Dutch goes out there to talk to him, and he says, Billy, what's out there? And he's lost. He's lost in outside of himself. He starts to grab the talisman that he has around his neck, right? He's got a topaz up there. He's hoping to, ascend. But he starts to grab this talisman, and this is him, I guess, seeking the protection of his ancestor. Whatever he's doing here, he is trying to reconnect with the land and understand what he's doing, what this is. And I think that in a way, he must be truly. Obviously, Billy has a kind of second sight or a higher instinct than the other guys do, even though they're dialed into nature here. But yeah, Billy's really into crystals this season. Hey man, did you get that new geode? Dutch gave me a tiger eye for my birthday. So he says something is watching us from the trees, and then there's the great line that Carl Weathers says about something about man, and he says, I don't know who did this, but it wasn't no man. And so that leads us to believe that really scares the other guys because remember, the one guy says, bullshit, Billy, you ain't afraid of no man. Son of a bitch is dug in there like an Alabama tick. I ain't got time to bleed. You got time to duck? That's a great scene. But he says, bullshit, Billy, you ain't afraid of no man. And he says, whatever's out there is no man. And he's right. It's not a man in the movie. Is it an alien? In the movie, it's an alien. Ain't no faking grays. These are, there's demons, right? Or there's body mod DARPAs. But this is an alien, a squoogey gray. He's literally gray. He's a gray alien. He's a lamb alien. He doesn't have the big head. He does have a big head. He's giant. But he doesn't have the big round Crowleyan head. Okay, but anyway. I ain't got time to bleed. I ain't got time. Listen, I got to make a flight back to Baja. I just ordered a flag. It's the biggest flag in the continental United States. You know, when I was filming Predator, everybody was dining on the native cuisine, but I made sure to eat my Kit Kats. Have you ever heard of the CIA's Gateway Project and Pink Mist? So Billy is now sure that they're being hunted. And so then what happens is the big man, Jesse, is out there, slack-jawed. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for not saying, but we all know what the line is. It's the great line in the movie. A bunch of slack-jawed. With his MTV shirt on. The coolest part of the movie is that Jesse Ventura is carrying the minigun, right? He's got a fucking Gatling gun, a helicopter minigun, right? That has a battery pack. I mean, you couldn't carry one of those. I'm sure they have that, right? But then, I mean, the one they had for the movie, like he's carrying this thing. You'd waste all the ammo in like 5 seconds, right? How could you? I don't know. Somebody enlighten us. Do they have those? Surely they do, right? At least now. They're probably watching the movie and they were like, that's a pretty good idea. We should do this. But anyway, he's carrying the minigun. And we see, this is a great scene because we see him turn and we see a weird mirrored shadow in the background. And we hear the sound, an otherworldly sound of a weapon. And one of the best things is the triangulated, crosshair triangulated system of targeting, right? Because it kind of predicts laser warfare and, hypersonic laser DEWs now, where we get the alien with it's like a parrot on his shoulder, but it's a body mod and it focuses and puts those 3 lights, and the 3 lights it's the same 3 lights in It, right? And it's a kind of, it's obviously this is a demon, this is a satanic 3 system, right? And he targets and blows a hole through the big man. And of course, the hostage is sitting right there. Maria Conchita Alonso. Is that her? Is that who it is? Is the actress? Somebody tell me who the actress. Who's the actress in the movie? Can somebody in chat tell me? What's her name? She's great. And she's so scared in the movie that they make a point of addressing this. Why didn't she run away? Right? Well, she's terrified. She's had her eyes opened here, and she's retreating into her psyche. And then we have Dutch come up and free her. So now she's free. Where they're all being hunted, and Billy has that line about "We're all gonna die here today." Great line, right? And they start being killed one by one. Why wasn't she killed? Well, Dutch is quick to say that she wasn't killed because she wasn't armed, so it wasn't a fair fight. This guy's a predator. He's trying to kill a worthy fucking adversary, the man in the black pajamas at Hill 364 at Londoc. And notice all of the references that they give, by the way, to former missions. I mentioned this kind of before, but there are continuous references to, what about Libya? Why didn't you go to Libya? And Dutch says, well, we're a rescue team, not assassins. So there's Libya, there's Gaddafi references, there's Afghanistan. They mentioned Nam. And we also learn that is how Bill Duke and Jesse Ventura are friends. Because when he gets killed, Bill Duke goes after, and then they start firing into the jungle. That's a great scene. I read that this is why you don't ask the filmmaker. I read that John McTiernan said that, this shows the futility of the weaponry because these guys are firing into nothingness, and then eventually their weapons don't serve them. Well, no, because they do wound him, and then that sets the rest of the narrative in motion. Benjamin, thank you, says the M134 minigun is a real gun that was used by the military at the time. It's a 6-barrel machine gun capable of a very high rate of fire. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So then what happens is Dutch talks to Bill Duke, and remember, the angle here is cool because we're seeing this from behind Dutch, and we're looking down into the valley. Now we're in the valley of the shadow of death, and we see Bill Duke down there, and he says, he was my friend. This is a very good scene because now we get something where, when people criticize action movies for not having enough story, which is what a lot of action movies do this, but this is where they go wrong with a movie like Predator because this movie is great in story. It's entirely cohesive, and we have a simple and subtle reference that speaks volumes that they were friends. And there's no talk, there's never the mention of friendship in the rest of this, even though we read into it. And they're a group that supersedes that in a way. But this is something human and personal, that they were friends. And then we have Bill Duke's excellent monologue. And let me show you here. Let's see. Bill Duke. He says, let me find this. He's got this great speech where, okay, why am I getting videos? I want the Bill Duke Predator speech. There's something out there waiting for us. It ain't no man. We're all going to die. No, that's Billy. I want the Bill Duke speech. Gonna have me some fun. Gonna have me some fun. Gonna have me some fun. Gonna have me some fun tonight. Gonna have me some fun tonight. Gonna have me some fun tonight. Long tall Sally. Let me find it. Bill Duke, Predator's speech about Sonny. I think Sonny. No, not Sonny. Sonny Landham is Billy. Let's see what he says. Fuck. Okay. I can find it here. Old Painless is waiting for you. Old Painless. Okay, let me go to IMDb. That'll have it. Old Painless is waiting for you. Down there with some Wagyu beef. Why did I freeze? Just because I'm fucking looking up something? I'm sorry for the cussing. The affiliates are not going to be happy. No, it did not like that. Uh-oh. Tell me if I'm back. Am I back? Am I back? Give me a thumbs up if you can see me on here, because I just froze out. Am I back? Okay, good. Yeah, sorry. I don't know. It's connection. Connection, just because I clicked on one fucking thing. Excuse my language, but we're talking about Predator. We can do that. All right, let's go to quotes here. Because Bill Duke's got a great speech. I'm just taking the time with this because he's got a great speech here. Here it is. Okay. So here's what Max says. This is Bill Duke. He says, he's talking to Blaine's corpse. So this is great because he takes out his flask, takes a sip, and he puts it on Billy's neck. And do you understand? This is a family program, folks. I'm sorry, the affiliates won't be happy, and I won't do it again. Even the way that he pats the flask on Jesse Ventura's neck is it's like probably the most delicate scene in the entire movie, and it shows the tenderness of friendship, which is amazing that that's in the movie. It's crazy that they do that. But here's Mac's monologue. He says, "Here we are again, bro, just you and me. Same kind of moon, same kind of jungle. Real number 10, remember? Whole platoon. 32 men chopped into meat. We walk out, just you and me, nobody else, right on top, huh? Not a scratch, not a fucking scratch. You know, whoever got you, they'll come back again. And when he does, I'm going to cut your name right into him. I'm going to cut your name into him." Dude, that is a very well written. That is a very, very well written monologue. Okay, I've talked a lot about what probably sells the movie. It's interesting. So here's my takeaway, just doing it live here, that on a rewatch, when you're really watching this film, obviously Arnie is the movie, right? Dutch is the film. But Bill Duke is probably the key to this movie, because he's both hard, right? You give away our location again, I'll bleed you real quiet right? Which shows that he's ready to do anything. He's ruthless in terms of taking care of his unit from this outsider, from the Carl Weathers character. But he looks like he's totally lost it because he's lost his friend. And this monologue is very good. Look how much we get in this. First of all, we get Vietnam. We get the whole platoon. We get the fact that these two guys survived. We got 32 guys. He knows the number of the guys who were chopped up. We get chopped into meat. So think about how amazing that is in the movie, because first of all, we had the reference to the meat grinder. Remember when I said that references can't be extraneous? They have to be cohesive in the movie. We get the meat grinder, and we also get the fact that the predator is a predator hunting for prey, and they are meat. But he took their skin, and he's using their bones in this ritual, this matamoros death ritual. But as for what they know right now, that he's using them for food, but it's not food, it's for the sport. It's the most dangerous game. So it becomes, again, remember where the most dangerous game was set, right? It's South America. We also have a Russian in the most dangerous game short story, right? We're in nature. We have in the short story, we have a neo-Gnostic, neo-Eden kind of most dangerous game, man hunting man, as an elite function, because it's the elites who have already they have exhausted their passions. They need something else. But here we have something else, and he's also looking at the moon, right? We see that he is now looking up into space, into the sky, just as where we began the movie, where the predator is probably watching him. And the fact that he says, "I'm going to cut your name into him," is an amazing line. That's evocative in the movie. That makes me think of Jamie's stream that she just did, right, about the golem and how you activate the golem by carving a name in its forehead that says, what's the word mean? It means like arise or awake. And then to destroy the golem, you erase one of the letters, and it means death. So the golem is obliterated. So he's going to carve his name into him, right? Which is fascinating. I think that's great. You ghosting us, motherfucker. You ghosting us, you ghosting us, motherfucker. I don't care who you are back in the world. You give away our position one more time, I'll bleed you. I'm real quiet. Leave you here. Got that? And then later on, we get the scene of I see you. So Bill Duke is now we get the predator mirroring the prey, being mirrored by Bill Duke's character here, who's hiding in the shadows, and he literally sees the predator. One of the great touches in this movie is the fact that the way that they constructed the kind of mirror image, the mirror camouflage, and how it looks like a liquid levels of echoing sound waves in a mirror, and how we see his eyes flash to let the lady know that he sees them. And when he gets shot, what's also interesting is that he bleeds, and she doesn't tell them that. But eventually she's gonna trust Dutch enough. You have to trust him. He's the leader of the team. He's the alpha here. She trusts him enough to say that he's bleeding. You wounded it. And so Dutch says, if it bleeds, we can kill it. So now they become, or he becomes the predator. So it's a constant role reversal here. Right? Also, the fact he said, you're ghosting us, because he is, when Bill Duke told him that he was ghosting them, it's giving away their location. But it also, the predator is a kind of a ghost. Does that make sense? Are you guys following me? Okay, so what happens is they start getting killed one by one. Let's kind of speed it up. They start getting killed one by one. Carl Weathers' arm gets blown off by a DEW DARPA laser. And interesting, he loses his arm with the machine gun still firing. He loses his arm. It's the same. He loses his hand. He lost the hand he's pushing the pencils with. Remember, this whole thing was started by Carl Weathers' CIA character pushing the mission into motion by through writing, right? They mentioned that, the pencils. And now he's lost his arm, he's lost his sense of direction, and then he's gone and he's in pain, and he sort of gets his comeuppance. What else do you guys get from the arm here? I think it's interesting how they did that. But he wounds him, right? He sort of mortally wounds him, and they all start dying. And one of the great things here is Billy standing on the tree trunk, the fallen tree trunk, standing on the abyss, looking into the darkness. There's your word, drink. Looking into the outer world, and he removes his garb like he's some sort of ancient warrior here, right? Taking on the warrior stance of his ancestors, cuts himself on his chest to bleed, to draw in the predator. The predator will smell blood, and then he dies off screen. So this is Shakespearean, dying off stage, because now all we get is his death scream. And first we had Billy's. Notice how things keep changing hands in the movie. We had Billy laughing, the predator laughing. Now we have Billy in a death scream. So it's an his final moment, and the fact that we hear that echoing through the woods is later going to be echoed by Arnie when he does his savage moment with the big torch. Right? It's so awesome the way that builds up, and he's standing up above again above another crevasse, above the ravine, above the abyss. Drink, and he's standing. He's drink your Red Bull. Drink your Red Bull. He's standing in the tree, throwing the torch down. It's like he's laying down the gauntlet. Oh, he's laying down the gauntlet, so I guess Carl Weathers' gloved hand gets laid down, and that is what sets in motion Arnie being the sole survivor and the final warrior here. Or not the sole survivor, because the woman takes off into the woods to find the Hilo exfil site. But the gauntlet is thrown down, and now Arnie is going to take up the who's going to take up the cause. Kit says the flaming sword. Yeah, it does function as that, right? Or like he's standing on the edge of Eden, saying, "You can't come back here." Right? That's his. That's his sort of ritual in that moment, and he does it in a ritualistic sense in that part. But anyway, so now we have Arnie escaping, and Billy's death occurs off stage because there's more terror in the imagining of what happened than seeing him. We've already seen plenty of just blatant death here. We also had the fact that Arnie or Dutch realized that he uses the trees. He's up in the trees. He's using the trees, and that the predator can bounce around trees like some sort of insectoid lizard creature, right? Or some silent demon, right? Mirroring nature. He's just a hole in the darkness, right? If you think it's hard making cricket noises with your mouth, try making the predator noise. That's a good point, Benjamin. I can't do it. The score in this movie is awesome. It's so good. The score is amazing in this. We have the echoing tribal drums in the background, right? It's supposed to indicate that the predator is on the loose. So we learned that he's in the trees, and that's supposed to convey that he's above these guys. They are grounded, they're human, and that he is otherworldly. He literally is, but he's also otherworldly I mean, it takes on spiritual implications here for sure. Past the one, regardless of the ones I've already mentioned. You watch this, and in the shoes of the protagonist, you can't help but think that that's what they're afraid of. And so then we learn through Dutch, I keep wanting to say Dutch Schultz, that Dutch learns he also can be camouflaged, right? So he's covered in mud. He is brought down real low, as AJ says. He's brought down low into the muck and the mire. In the crevasse, he sees there's a little canyon there. He starts pulling down trees. So what's interesting is, I just realized this as well, that the predator uses the trees to move, and Dutch brings down the trees in his Green Beret tactics of making tripwires and various things. Remember, they have the big, of course, the one guy, it's the other guy who gets, they have the big, like, battering ram of the logs, right? And he gets busted in the stomach. It's horrible. But he starts setting up his own traps here, and then of course he goes to the treetops in darkness, looking at the moon and the waterfall. Nature is pristine here. It's beautiful. And when he does his wolf cry into the wilderness, of course the predator is in his treetop, in his little nest that he's made, his little death nest. And he's already done his self-medicating. We learned that when we switch perspectives and we see the predator up in the trees and he has to medicate himself because he's bleeding, first of all, we learned that his blood is nuclear, right? He's got this nuclear alien glowing goop blood that's green and dripping, and that's what's later going to function as the sort of mini nuke when he MK Omegas himself. But when he's up in the treetops, we see him take off his cloaking device, and he fixes his wound. He gives himself a morphine shot, like in the thigh, and he's so he does that thing, and then later, and they hear it, and then Arnie's going to mimic him. So Arnie becomes the predator here. Phone Punk, yes, that's a good point. That's a great point. She literally says this. She literally says that he's a demon. That's a great point. I almost totally forgot that. So she says, when I was young, she has a great monologue. She says, when I was young, we would go to the villages, and we called him El Diablo Cazador del Hombre, right? The demon, she says, the demon who hunts men. And this is when it's hot. So we're in a hellish, hot, dry season here. course, it's wet and sticky in the jungle, but they are outside of the world, and now this demon has appeared and is hunting them. And we see him in the treetops take his skulls. We see that one of them is Jesse Ventura's skull because he got a hole, or one of them is somebody. He's got a hole in his head, and he starts caressing the skulls with his long talons. And he's sitting up there looking at the skulls. He's got his little nest, and these are his trophies. He's an alien demon, Winter Soldier, DARPA body mod, hunter killer, serial killer, right? Stroking his skulls. And when he throws down, we see the camera looking, and we see Billy thrown down with his face. And this is the Matamoros thing. The predator reaches down and pulls out his spine and holds it up as a trophy with the skull. And it's like, that's a terrifying scene when you're young. But this is specifically what is mentioned in this book. So this guy Costanza, what's his name? It's a great book. I recommend you guys check this out. So the book is about how a group of spring breakers in the 80s were down in Matamoros, and they got kidnapped by a cartel, and the dad went on a mission to try and find justice. And eventually what they found was that this cartel was operating under this guy Costanza, and he had a G-Max witch character who was Santeria style leading the rituals of the gang. And what they did was, the guy in his rituals, when they found the location and they raided it, they found these huts with cauldrons full of human stew and it boiling, like this is total hell world. And the guy Costanza, what he would do in his rituals when he was praying to his demon, was he would wear his garb. His garments were like a rib cage, and like the spine and rib cage of the well, that's what he wore. So he's wearing human skeletal ritual garb, and that is what the Predator does in this. He doesn't wear it, but he collects those same accoutrements. I'll say it again. And so I think and plus the location of where the movie takes place and the Contras, I think that all of those sort of convey that sense. And so, all right, so let's move it along. So Arnie throws down the fire, and we get the Predator coming in, and eventually he is brought down real low by a tree trunk. The tree trunk falls on him and crushes him, and then he also removes his helmet to fight one-on-one combat with his prey. Remember the great scene where he used his laser to heat up his Wolverine forearm claw sword, so that it can be hot when he cuts through him, right? He removes his mask, and now we see that he is a lizard. He's a space lizard. I did a whole stream on space lizards. I should have done this movie, right? I did Enemy Mine and the space lizards. So he's a space lizard with mandibles. He's like, you are one ugly motherfucker. And they fight, and he's eventually wounded, and then he uses his neural link and his I don't fucking know, man. He presses his little keypad in. He presses his Game Boy Nintendo glove, and he starts laughing like Billy, and he MK Omegas himself, and Arnie runs and jumps out of the explosion, and then eventually we see the kind of mini nuke go off in the distance from the treetops. Now we switch perspectives, and we see the helicopter, and then he's standing there with death and smoke and shadow on him. He is X-filled out, and he rises above the trees, and he flies into the sunset, and that's it. And the closure we're given is, there's a lone survivor. There's a final girl because the girl got to the helicopter site to tell him that he was alive. There is a duel. There's a kind of cowboy duel here that takes place, a one-on-one single combat, a warrior combat. And Phone Punk, he ascends. So now he ascends above the treetops and he goes back in the direction. He's not going to space, but the movie was begun with a descent and it ends with an ascent. And that's the movie. So that's Predator. What'd you guys think? I mean, look, what do you think of the movie? I mean, the movie is so good. It's so fucking good. It's so good. This movie is great. It's a movie for guys who like movies, surely. But I think that the movie works and is a classic movie because of the subtleties in the movie. It's well written. It is show versus tell. Form and content work together just like in a piece of literature. The cast is stellar. The location, and it's truthful. That's the main point of the movie, that it's revelatory, it's relevant, and it's truthful. It's not factual. It's a fictional movie, but it is truthful in a lot of those big themes that we always talk about, especially with propaganda elements and with the MIC and Contras. So again, some of the books that I referenced here. Again, we have. Hold on. I got stacks of books everywhere. One is this book right here by Jim Kilroy and Bob Stewart. I know it's mirrored, but another one, of course, is the Oliver Stone. I got the signed first edition Oliver Stone Under Fire, American Story. He signed that. My dad went to the event where he was speaking. Oliver North ran for senator of Virginia also in the 90s, if you didn't know that. He lost, but. And then Dutch, which is a pretty normie documentary, normie biography of Reagan. I can't believe I read this almost 2 months to the day after the Big Nine. I remember reading it though. And coming up this week, well, first of all, tomorrow, please everybody join us. We got 50 viewers here. Thank you for being with me here on a Friday night. Yo, Benjamin says, great movie and great review. Thanks for covering it. Fun Punk says, this was a lot of fun. Shouts out to everybody out there. Shouts out to all my friends. And hope everybody's doing well. Tomorrow, we will be here at 4 o'clock for the Point Break stream. And then coming up this week, I'll be doing a stream on Shakespeare's final historical tragedy, a Roman. This is a great play. It'll probably be Monday maybe that I'll do it. But this is fantastic, Coriolanus, because it is now. My preview is that this is the reason why we read Shakespeare and read the classics, because this is now. It's about a Roman general who comes back from the wars. It functions as if Antony and Cleopatra, which I covered, is a sequel to Julius Caesar, this is an anti-sequel because it follows in the same mode as Julius Caesar, but it is about political machinations and class warfare, and it's about how the elites use limited hangouts and fake flags to get the plebs to do their bidding, but they risk being overrun in their color revolution. I'm talking literally, that's what this is. And the tragic flaw here is interesting because Shakespeare subverts the normal order, and the tragic flaw is not one of indecision or indecisiveness or jealousy or rage or wrath or megalomania. In fact, it's virtue. But this is an outsider. He can't. He is part of a psychopathic system where he has no feelings for the plebs, but he also doesn't want to flatter the elites in a pantomime where he's supposed to become the consul of Rome. So what happens is we see just to give you a preview, what we see in the play is that the entire system of how people are in power, I'll just say that, is a pantomime, and the patricians, who are the elites, choose the person, and they just are giving a pantomime fake I won't say that, system. And you actually, that word, how we choose people, they say, is a Roman word. It's a Latin word. It's Roman. And there's even a line in here about, well, why even go through with that? Why didn't you just, it's just a formality. We could have just bypassed that. So anyway, that'll be this play. Also, Brett Easton Ellis and a bunch of other stuff. But let's get to some super chats. Yeah, there's the movie with Ray Fiennes and Gerard Butler. But things are about to get sporty. Things are about to get sporty. Okay, let's look and see if we got any. Mixky says, I can't stop watching the show. Watch mine. No, it's good to hear from you, Mixky. And Mixky's been in the chat. Shouts out to my friend Logan out there. Sending me smashing pumpkins. Real John Connor says, I'll write it and we'll do it live. Nice. Shouts out to Real John Connor out there. Okay. Let's see here. Nice. Okay, nice. We got an $8 dono from Jason right there on PayPal. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate you, homeboy. I think that might be it. I think that's it for the support. Yeah, there's Mixky. Yes, there's our friend Mixky. Nice. Shouts out to Mixky out there. And listen, let me promo Mixky here, my friend Mick. Go to his Instagram at technowar graphics. He's right there in the chat. He's one of our mods and one of our friends. One of our old school friends here. So we love Mikhail, obviously. So please go and check him out on Instagram. Let me see here. Let me look at this real quick and see if we got any other support here. You guys, please support me. I could really use the support as always. I need to get books and all the stuff and we need to keep the operation going. You can grab a membership. Shouts out again to Circle G who dropped $5 about special forces. Shouts out to Tori Hanzo who dropped $5 and said enjoying the journey through BLA archive. Had a lot of support during that Kurt Vonnegut stream. You guys, please go back and watch my literary streams on Kurt Vonnegut that I just did. And also, I just did the stream with Maddie on True Detective. That one did pretty well. If you want to support me, you can do that at any time. You can drop. Thank you for dropping that link. Yeah, there you go. Everybody check out Technowar Graphics right there with his link to Instagram. If you want to support me, you can do that anytime. Through the links provided, especially through the links that get right to me and that I can get a lot. Digital Aboriginal says, your volume is low. Is my volume low? Maybe you need to turn it up. Maybe you need to turn up that volume. Put it on a Bluetooth speaker. I think I'm doing all right. I should be good. Yeah, I think my volume's pretty high. I've been coming in pretty hot. Turn up that Bluetooth speaker. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. And like and share. I'll be back tomorrow with Point Break, 4 o'clock. Hope to see everybody then. And please support me if you can. And I appreciate y'all. Thank you for being here for this Predator stream. This was a lot of fun. And just switched over from another video, half of the last one. I don't know. It always changes. The volume's always iffy because it'll either come in hot or it resets. Whenever you do a refresh, it always resets. And then when I go on TNT, I got to change the volume settings, so it's very difficult. Hopefully it's coming in a little bit better now. But I don't know why it's so hard. It's not just me either. Everybody has the problems with volume. So, but I think it should be coming in okay right now. But anyway, like and share, everybody. I will see you tomorrow. And let's play us out. Listen, let's play us out. What does that mean to play us out? What does that mean, play us out? All right, go. Here's Rooks G with what should we end with here? Let's end with Space Nugget. This is Rooks G. I will see you guys tomorrow. Love you. Peace.
Now let's go around the world in 80 ways in space as we capture the international flavor of the anthem world's fair in the skies. Here are scientific crossroads that symbolize the international spirit of space age tomorrow.
Thank you, Caravaggio. Thank you, Caravaggio. Really appreciate that. Yes, thank you for the 3K. Congratulations. Really appreciate that. That's thanks to you guys out there. Please subscribe. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Help me out. Leave a comment afterwards. Please like and share, and I'll see you all. Peace.